The city was alive with neon lights and restless energy that Friday night. Music pulsed from crowded bars, horns blared in the downtown traffic, and laughter spilled from groups of friends weaving their way down the sidewalks. For most, the night was just beginning. But for Daniel Reyes, it was the end of another long, exhausting shift. Daniel was a single dad, 35, with tired eyes and calloused hands that told the story of a man who worked too hard for too little. Driving for a rideshare company wasn't glamorous, but it kept the bills paid and food on the table for his daughter, Emily. She was only 8 years old, bright, curious, and the reason Daniel pushed himself day after day. As he drove down the glistening streets, his phone chimed with another request. He glanced at the screen. Pick up. The Grand Regent Hotel. Drop off. Unknown. He frowned. The Grand Regent was the kind of place that screamed luxury. Politicians, celebrities, and CEOs walked through its golden doors like they owned the world. Daniel hesitated. He could ignore it, go home, and finally rest. But then he thought about the overdue electric bill sitting on his counter. With a sigh, he tapped accept. When he pulled up, the revolving doors spun, and out stumbled a woman in a silk navy gown, her heels clicking unevenly against the marble steps. She clutched a glittering clutch purse with one hand and tried to wave him down with the other. Car 4. Dan Yul. She slurred, her words sticky from too much champagne. That's me, Daniel said, stepping quickly out of the car. He opened the back door, steadying her as she slid inside with surprising grace for someone clearly inebriated. The moment she settled into the seat, the rich scent of perfume filled the car, floral but sharp, layered with the unmistakable trace of expensive liquor. Daniel glanced at her through the rearview mirror. She was elegant, no doubt wealthy, but her carefully styled hair was falling loose, and her mascara had smudged beneath her eyes. Where to? He asked. She blinked, pulling her phone close to her face, fumbling through her contacts. Home, she muttered, but don't remember the address right now. Daniel's brow furrowed. Ma'am, I need an address to take you home safely. Her laugh was soft but tinged with sadness. Safely, she echoed, as though it were a foreign word. She waved her hand vaguely. Just drive, I'll figure it out. He started down the road, letting her gather her thoughts. She murmured bits and pieces, street names that didn't exist, landmarks that didn't line up. Frustration prickled at Daniel. He could dump her at the nearest address that sounded half right, but something about the way she looked, so fragile behind the armor of wealth, stopped him. Finally, he pulled over to the side of a quieter street and turned to face her. Look, I don't think you're giving me the right directions. Do you have anything in your bag? An ID, a business card, something with your address? She gave him a bleary but sharp look, as if trying to size him up. You're honest, she muttered. Most drivers would just leave me. I've got a daughter, Daniel said simply. If she were in trouble, I'd want someone to help her. Not take advantage. The woman fumbled through her clutch, pulling out a sleek black card embossed with gold letters. Daniel's eyes widened when he read the name. Vivian Hartwell, CEO, Hartwell Enterprises. He recognized it instantly. Her company's name was plastered on half the skyscrapers in the city. He let out a low breath. He was driving her, a woman who controlled millions, maybe billions, of dollars with the stroke of a pen. And here she was, drunk and vulnerable in the back seat of his worn-down sedan. Got it, he said finally, punching the address into his GPS. The route wound toward the city's wealthiest neighborhood. The drive was quiet, except for Vivian's soft humming as she leaned her head against the window, eyes half shut. Once or twice, she muttered things that sounded more like confessions than drunken ramblings. I built everything, she whispered once. But no one's really there when it matters. Daniel kept his eyes on the road, pretending not to hear. Some truths weren't meant for strangers, especially not ones said under the haze of alcohol. When they reached her gated mansion, the car came to a slow stop. The gates swung open automatically as if the house itself recognized its mistress. Vivian tried to step out but nearly collapsed. Daniel instinctively caught her arm, steadying her. Careful, he murmured. Her eyes fluttered up at him, a flicker of vulnerability passing through. Why are you helping me? He met her gaze, his voice calm and steady. Because someone should. She let out a small, almost disbelieving laugh. "You talk like you're not afraid of me." Daniel smiled faintly. "Right now, you're just another human being who needs a hand. That's all." Inside, the mansion was breathtaking. High ceilings, marble floors, art that probably cost more than Daniel would make in a decade. But it was also cold, lifeless, like a museum without warmth. He guided her to the living room and helped her settle onto a couch. "I'll get you some water," he said, disappearing briefly into the kitchen. He returned with a glass, placing it gently on the table beside her. Vivian looked at the water as if it were a rare treasure. "You're too kind," she whispered, her words dragging into sleep. Daniel hesitated for a moment before pulling a throw blanket over her shoulders. Standing there, in a mansion built by wealth and power, he thought about the irony, how someone who had everything still looked so alone. With one last glance, he quietly let himself out. The drizzle had turned into a steady rain as he slid back into his car. The night's encounter replayed in his mind. The powerful woman slumped on her couch, her vulnerability laid bare. He shook his head. Their lives were worlds apart. He would never see her again. Or so he thought. Morning sunlight streamed through the enormous glass windows of the Hartwell mansion, cutting across the polished marble like golden ribbons. Vivian Hartwell groaned, burying her face in the velvet couch cushion. Her head throbbed like a drum, her mouth dry as sandpaper. The faint perfume of last night's gala still lingered in the air, mixed with the dull scent of expensive wine. But something was different. Vivian sat up slowly, pushing the blanket from her shoulders. She blinked at the glass of water on the table, carefully set, half full, like someone had placed it there with deliberate care. She frowned. No one else lived in this house. No assistant stayed overnight, no staff was on duty past midnight. Then it came back in hazy fragments. The gala. Too many champagne flutes raised in shallow toasts. The spinning hotel lobby. A steady male voice coaxing her into a car. Broad shoulders, calloused hands catching her when she nearly fell. The driver. Vivian rubbed her temples, the memory warming her in a strange way. She was used to vultures circling when she showed weakness. People clung to her for power, for wealth, for favors. But that man. What was his name? Daniel. He hadn't asked for anything. He hadn't tried to take advantage. He had simply helped. Her assistant, Nora, arrived later that morning, carrying a briefcase full of contracts. She found Vivian seated at the kitchen island, stirring black coffee but not drinking it. "Rough night?" Nora asked carefully. Vivian lifted her gaze, sharp as ever. "Find me last night's driver." Nora blinked. "Driver? Yes," Vivian said firmly. "From the rideshare app. His name was Daniel. Track him down." Nora hesitated. She was used to odd requests, but this was unusual even for her boss. "May I ask why?" "Because," Vivian said, her voice softer, "he treated me like a person, not a headline. And that matters more than anything in this world." By the afternoon, Daniel's phone buzzed. He was in his kitchen, making macaroni and cheese for Emily, who was humming to herself at the table, drawing with colored pencils. "Mr. Daniel Reyes?" a crisp voice asked on the line. "Yes," he said cautiously. "This is Nora Chen, assistant to Ms. Vivian Hartwell. She would like to meet you. Today, if possible." Daniel nearly dropped the spoon. "Vivian Hartwell. Yes, sir. She would like to express her gratitude." Daniel's first instinct was to say no. He didn't belong in her world of marble floors and billion-dollar deals. But Emily looked up at him, her big brown eyes curious. And something in him whispered that this meeting wasn't just chance, it was a turning point. "All right," he said finally. "Tell her I'll come." Walking into Hartwell Enterprises felt like stepping into another universe. The lobby alone was taller than most buildings in his neighborhood, lined with glass, steel, and a constant stream of professionals in tailored suits. Daniel felt underdressed in his clean but simple shirt and jeans. People glanced at him curiously, whispering, probably wondering why he was there. Then Vivian appeared. She looked nothing like the woman from last night. Her dark hair was perfectly styled, her navy suit sharp and commanding. But her eyes, those held a softness, a flicker of recognition, when they landed on him. "Mr. Reyes," she said, offering her hand. Thank you for coming. Daniel shook it, her grip firm but warm. Just Daniel is fine. She gestured for him to follow her into her office, a corner suite with a panoramic view of the city. Inside, she seemed less like the untouchable CEO and more like the woman from the couch, the one who had whispered about being alone. I wanted to thank you, she began, her voice steady but carrying an undercurrent of sincerity. You could have left me at that hotel, or worse. But you didn't. You made sure I was safe. That means more than I can say. Daniel shifted in his seat, uncomfortable under the weight of her gratitude. Anyone would have done the same. Vivian shook her head. No, not anyone. People in my world take advantage of weakness. You didn't. He gave a small, almost shy smile. I just thought, if it were my daughter out there, I'd want someone to look after her. At that, Vivian's expression softened. You have a daughter, Emily, 8 years old. She's my whole world, Daniel said, and for a moment, his weariness lifted when he spoke of her. Vivian leaned forward, studying him. You talk about her with so much devotion. I can't remember the last time I heard someone speak that way about family. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Don't you have family? Her smile was faint, tinged with sadness. Not anymore. Not really. Just shareholders and board members who call when they need something. She paused, then added, that's why last night mattered. You reminded me that there are still decent people in this city. Daniel didn't know what to say. He wasn't used to powerful women confessing loneliness to him. He wasn't used to powerful women talking to him at all. Then Vivian said something he would never forget. Daniel, she said carefully, I don't want this to be the end. You need stability for your daughter, I can see that. And she hesitated, choosing her words. I need someone who reminds me what it means to be human. The room fell silent, her confession hanging between them. Daniel's heart pounded. He had spent years building walls, protecting Emily and himself from disappointment. But something about Vivian's honesty cut through those defenses. I don't know what you're asking, he said finally. Neither do I, she admitted with a small laugh. But maybe we don't need to define it yet. Maybe we just start with dinner. You, Emily, and me. No boardrooms, no drivers, no CEOs. Just people. For a long moment, Daniel stared at her, torn between disbelief and hope. Then, slowly, he nodded. All right, dinner. Weeks passed, and what began as one dinner turned into many. Vivian found herself sitting at Daniel's small kitchen table, eating homemade spaghetti with Emily, who giggled at her stories. She learned to laugh again, to feel warmth in places she thought were long gone. Daniel, cautious but open, discovered that beneath the CEO's armor was a woman who craved belonging as much as he did. And Emily, with her innocent heart, saw no billionaire or driver, only people who cared about her. The night Daniel drove Vivian home had seemed like a chance encounter, a moment destined to fade. But her morning words, simple, honest, and vulnerable, had rewritten the course of their lives. And neither of them would ever be the same again.